They said miracles happen. But what do you call it when your husband is medically impotent and you still end up pregnant? Some call it divine. Others call it deceit. For me, it was the night everything I believed about love shattered. The evening began like a dream. The table at Skyline Rooftop Restaurant glowed beneath the city lights of Lekki, the air thick with soft jazz and the scent of wealth. I wore the red gown Richard said made me look like fire. He sat across from me, looking like a man who had conquered the world. Calm, powerful, admired. Tonight was our second wedding anniversary, and I wanted it perfect. I wanted us to feel alive again. He reached for my hand, his thumb brushing my skin slowly. "Mercy," he said, voice low. "Do you still love me?" Smiled. "What kind of question is that?" "Of course I do." But his eyes didn't smile back. They were distant, filled with a kind of fear that made my heartbeat quicken. He drew a folded paper from his pocket. Not a gift, not a surprise. A medical report. "I've been keeping something from you," he began quietly. "Something I should have said long ago." My smile froze. "I've been to 3 hospitals," he said, voice breaking, "and the results were the same. Mercy. I'm impotent." The word cracked through me like thunder. For a second I thought I misheard. Then I saw the shame in his eyes. "I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd leave," he continued. "I thought maybe prayer, maybe hope would fix it." The restaurant around us blurred, the laughter, the music, the sparkle of wine glasses. It all faded behind the sound of my own breathing. "So what happens now?" I whispered. "What happens to us?" He looked at me with tears that made him seem smaller, weaker. "You deserve more than I can give you." I stood, chest burning with anger and pity tangled together. "You think this is mercy? You think I needed your honesty now, after 2 years of pretending everything was fine?" He didn't answer. Just sat there broken while I walked out into the warm Lagos night. Outside, the city lights blinked like secrets waiting to be told. Somewhere between the sound of my heels and the hum of traffic, I realized something I never wanted to admit, that love alone might not be enough. And that night, the night he confessed, was the night my sin began to breathe. If a marriage is a house, silence is the first crack. The morning after Skyline, silence sat between Richard and me like a third person at the dining table. He tapped through emails, the clink of his spoon too careful, his eyes never rising to meet mine. I wore the smile of a woman who didn't cry in an Uber last night. Failed. By noon he'd stepped out for a meeting, which was code for hiding in the office until shame cooled. I wandered the rooms of our glass and marble life, opening curtains, rearranging pillows, touching nothing that could answer the questions in my chest. My phone buzzed. "David, are you home?" I stared at the name. Richard's best friend, his co-founder, the man who spoke in calm solutions and wore cologne that smelled like quiet rain. "Yes, David, I'm downstairs. I brought IRU stew from my aunt. You haven't eaten since yesterday, have you?" Almost said no. I should have said no. Instead I found myself in the elevator, watching my reflection try on composure like lipstick. The doors opened to David in a charcoal polo and worried eyes, holding a food flask like it was medicine. "Mercy," he said gently. "You look tired." "I'm fine." The lie cracked. We ate on the balcony. He spoke about nothing at first. Traffic on Admiralty, a vendor messing up signage at the hub. Then softly. "He told you, didn't he?" The fork slipped from my hand. "So you knew." "I knew he was drowning," David said, gaze steady. "He wouldn't let me call you a lifeboat." Anger leaped up, hot and stupid. "So the two of you decided to let me perform happy wife, while you carried the truth like briefcases?" He didn't flinch. "No. Asked him to tell you. Yesterday he said he would." I folded my arms. He did. Happy anniversary to me. A wind dragged clouds across the afternoon. Somewhere below, a generator coughed awake. David slid the flask closer. "Eat." I took a bite to spite him and promptly started crying. The softness of Eru made my throat ache. He didn't pretend not to notice. He didn't try to fix it. He just sat there, present, the way some men only are in emergencies or dreams. "Do you know what it's like," I said, "to be a wife and a widow at the same time?" He looked pained. "Mercy. I love him," I whispered. "But my body is a locked door. I knock and no one opens." David's jaw worked like he was biting back the wrong words. "You deserve warmth," he said finally. "Not just a roof." His phone rang. Richard. He flipped it face down. A thunderhead rolled over the lagoon, and with it a memory. Richard's hand slipping from mine across white sheets, the apology in his eyes, the apology in my smile. I felt small, female, starving. "Tell me I'm not a bad person for wanting more," I said. "You're a human being," he answered. "And you're carrying too much." We sat in a silence that wasn't empty, just full of things we were not allowed to say. When I stood to take the plates in, I swayed. David's hand reached my elbow, steadying. His fingers were warm. The contact was a spark. I stepped back so quickly the chair scraped. "I'm married," I said too fast. "I know." He lifted his hands in surrender, and the care in his face undid me more than the touch. "I won't cross your lines." A mild rain began, the balcony glass peppered with soft taps like a drummer warming up. We retreated inside. He rinsed dishes in my kitchen like he'd done it 100 times, sleeves pushed up, forearms wet. "Domestic. Dangerous." "Richard loves you," he said over the tap. "He doesn't know how to not be ashamed." "And you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "What do you know how to be?" He shut the tap, turned. There was nothing romantic in his distance, just restraint shaped like a person. "Present," he said. "When you need someone to sit with you in the storm." Something unclenched in me. I sat on the edge of the island and told him everything I'd never dared to voice. The doctor visits, the fasting that made me dizzy, the way my body woke at night reaching for a heat that wasn't there. He listened like listening was his only job. When words ran out, he passed me a kitchen towel as if it were a handkerchief from another century. "Sleep," he suggested. "I'll lock up." I should have insisted he leave. Instead, I drifted to the bedroom and collapsed on the duvet, the rain turning the room into a cocoon. I woke at dusk to a text on my screen. "David, left you Jill off in the fridge. Drink water. Call your sister if you can. If you can't, call me." I didn't call anyone. I sat in the purple light and realized how easy it is to mistake safety for salvation when you are starving. Richard returned close to midnight, smelling of office cold and mint. He kissed my forehead like a man signing a contract. "Tomorrow will be better," he said. But in the quiet after, the house remembered David's steady hands, the rain remembered our balcony, and loneliness learned a new word. Almost. That was the night I understood how affairs begin. Not with a kiss, but with a chair pulled closer to your grief, and someone brave enough not to look away. They say temptation doesn't knock. It waits for you to open the door yourself. And that night I did. It began with thunder. The kind that rattles your chest and makes Legos feel like judgment is coming. Richard had traveled to Abuja for a conference. He kissed my cheek before leaving, promising to call before bed. But midnight came, and the phone stayed silent. Rain hammered the windows. I sat by the balcony, watching lightning split the sky, holding a cup of tea that had long gone cold. The house felt too big, too quiet. And then a knock. When I opened the door, David stood there, drenched, his shirt clinging to his chest, water dripping from his hair. "I tried calling," he said breathlessly. "The roads are flooding." I didn't want to risk driving home. I hesitated. My heart knew it was dangerous, but loneliness reasoned louder. "Come in," I said softly. He stepped inside, shaking off the rain, and for the first time, the air between us felt alive. Charged, tense, forbidden. "Richard mentioned the trip," he said, rubbing his arms dry with a towel. "You okay alone?" He nodded. "I'm fine." But I wasn't, and he could tell. We sat on the couch, the storm outside matching the storm within. Lightning lit up his face. sharp jaw, soft eyes, and that same quiet concern that had comforted me too many times. "I shouldn't have come," he murmured. "Then why did you?" "Yes. Because you looked like you were about to break." The words hung between us, raw and honest. I turned away, blinking fast, but he reached out, gently touching my chin. "You don't have to hide it," he whispered. I should have pulled back. I should have remembered my vows. But when his thumb brushed the tear I didn't know had fallen, something inside me collapsed. The first kiss was soft, hesitant, a question neither of us wanted answered. The second carried years of bottled need. His hands moved to my waist, and before sense could return, I was kissing him back, tasting rain, guilt, and a heat that terrified me. The thunder outside roared louder, as if the heavens were watching. Clothes fell like surrender, one by one, until there was no sound but breathing and the wild rhythm of hearts that knew this would ruin everything. When it was over, the silence was deafening. He tried to hold me, but I pulled away. "Please go," I whispered. He hesitated, pain flashing in his eyes. "Mercy. Go." When the door shut behind him, I sat on the floor, my skin burning, my soul cold. I told myself it was just a mistake, a moment of weakness that would never happen again. But sin doesn't stay buried. Breathe. Wait. And inside me, something had already begun to grow. They say every sin comes with a seed. Mine came with 2 pink lines. It had been 6 weeks since that night, the night David and I swore to bury and never speak of again. He avoided me, I avoided him, and Richard returned from Abuja more attentive than ever, guilt making him generous. He brought roses, cooked dinner once, even prayed with me before bed. But beneath every gesture my stomach twisted. I'd been sick every morning, dizzy at noon, and my body, my body, felt different. When my period missed its cue, I told myself stress was the cause. When it missed again, fear began to whisper. That morning I stood in the bathroom staring at the pregnancy test box like it was a live bomb. My hands shook as I tore it open. 1 line appeared. Then another. 2 lines. Positive. I laughed first, a broken, trembling laugh that sounded like someone else. Then came tears. Heavy, messy, unstoppable. "God," I whispered, clutching the sink. "Please don't do this to me." The door creaked. Richard leaned against the frame, shirt unbuttoned, smile lazy. "What's all the noise in here?" I froze, hiding the stick behind my back. He frowned. "Mercy, what's that?" My heart pounded as I showed him, unable to lie fast enough. His eyes widened, confusion, disbelief, then a kind of joy I hadn't seen in him for months. You're pregnant. Maybe the test is wrong," I stammered. "Maybe it's..." But he wasn't listening. He laughed, full and free, lifting me into his arms. "Mercy. This is it. God has done it." I felt his tears against my neck. He dropped to his knees, holding my belly as if a miracle lived there. "I told you he would make a way," he whispered. "Our faith wasn't wasted." I wanted to scream, to confess, to tell him this wasn't faith. It was failure wrapped in flesh. But his joy was too pure, his relief too raw. I couldn't destroy it. Not yet. When he left for work, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection. My hands trembled as I picked up my phone. One message. "We need to talk." "David, about what?" "Me, I'm pregnant." Typing, then silence. Minutes passed. Then his reply came like thunder. "David, are you sure it's mine?" The words sliced deeper than any blade. "Me, you know Richard can't." Another pause. "David, don't text me again. Not here. Not ever." That night Richard came home with champagne. He told the staff to clear the living room, said we'd host a small Thanksgiving next Sunday. I smiled on cue, laughed when expected, but every sound felt hollow. When he hugged me, his scent, mint and cedarwood, reminded me of everything I was destroying. The house filled with prayers and plans, and I sat there smiling, one hand on my stomach, the other hiding the truth. Because sometimes a miracle isn't a blessing. Sometimes it's the loudest lie heaven ever allowed. Secrets are like perfumes. No matter how tight the bottle, the scent always escapes. Mine began to leak the night Richard borrowed my phone. It was 2 months after the pregnancy test. My belly had just begun to show. Richard had turned into the perfect husband. Devoted, careful, annoyingly joyful. He insisted on driving me to antenatal visits, reading baby books, even singing to my stomach at night. Each kindness dug deeper into my guilt. One evening while I showered, I heard his voice from the bedroom. "Babe, my phone's dead. I need to call the driver. Can I use yours?" "Sure," I called back, heart skipping. I remembered nothing. No recent messages, no traces of David. We had stopped talking after that last text. Or so I thought. Minutes later, silence. Then, "Mercy." His tone was different, low, wounded. I rushed out, towel clutched to my chest. He was standing by the bed, phone in hand, screen glowing with the last message David ever sent. "David, you'll always be my mistake and my miracle." The words hung in the air like smoke. My knees weakened. "Richard, it's not what." He flung the phone across the room. It hit the wall, cracked, and fell silent. "Not what it looks like?" he asked, voice trembling. "Then tell me what it is, Mercy. Explain to me why my best friend calls my wife his miracle." I tried to speak, but only tears came. He stepped closer, eyes red and wild. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew what I was fighting. You knew what I couldn't give you. And this is how you comforted yourself. Richard, please. Was it him? That night it rained. Was it him?" I sank to my knees. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't plan it." He laughed, broken, bitter. "You didn't plan it, but you carried it. You let me celebrate what you knew wasn't mine." The sound of his pain was worse than shouting. It was quiet. It was deadly. He walked to the balcony, clutching his chest like the air itself betrayed him. "Do you even know what you've done?" he whispered. "That man was my brother." "I know," I sobbed. "And I hate myself every day for it." He turned, tears streaking down his face. "Whose child is it, Mercy?" My lips parted, but no sound came. The truth was too heavy to lift. He nodded slowly. "That's all the answer I need." That night he didn't sleep in our room. He packed a few clothes, car keys, and left without another word. I sat on the floor until dawn, the phone still cracked beside me, a message I wished I could unread. The next day I called David. His number was unreachable. By the weekend he had resigned from the company and disappeared. No goodbye, no address, just gone. Everywhere I turned, the world punished me with silence. Church ladies called it a miracle pregnancy. My mother called it answered prayer. But Richard, he called it nothing at all. Because sometimes silence isn't peace. It's war waiting for the right time to strike. They say truth comes slow but never late. Mine arrived wrapped in a hospital blanket, crying like salvation and judgment at the same time. 9 months later, the house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a shrine of regrets. Richard had returned, not to forgive but to witness the birth. He stood by the window, hands in pockets, watching rain slide down the glass while nurses rushed in and out. We hadn't spoken beyond polite sentences. He refused to touch me, but refused to leave either. That somehow hurt more. When the baby's cry filled the room, I turned to look at him. His shoulders trembled, and for the first time since that night, I saw the man I married, torn, human, and quietly praying. "Do you want to hold her?" Yes. He hesitated. Then he came closer, arms shaking as he took the tiny bundle. The baby blinked at him. Same brown eyes, same small dimple near the lip. He froze. I saw confusion, disbelief, and then something like fear. "Mercy," he whispered. She looks like me." I said nothing. He looked again, almost desperate to be wrong. "She has my father's eyes." "How?" A knock on the door interrupted us. Dr. Martin stepped in, a white envelope in his hand, the kind that carries verdicts. Mr. and Mrs. Nwoko, the paternity results you requested are ready. Richard took it silent. I watched his fingers tremble as he tore it open. His eyes moved left to right, then stopped. The paper slipped from his hand and fluttered to the floor. What does it say? I whispered, heart racing. He looked at me, eyes wide, stunned, wet. It says, I'm the father. And blinked. That's not possible. You told me. I was wrong, he said quietly. They were wrong. The tests, the diagnosis, everything. The doctor called yesterday to recheck my file. It was a temporary condition, not permanent. I didn't know. Mercy, I didn't know. The world tilted. Tears flooded my eyes. Relief, shame, gratitude, guilt, all crashing together. I reached for him, but he stepped back. I don't know whether to thank God or curse fate, he said, voice cracking. Because this means I doubted myself. But it also means you doubted us. I'm sorry, I cried. I was broken, Richard. I didn't mean to. He closed his eyes, breathing deep. You slept with my friend, Mercy. You broke us. But I broke you first, with my silence, my pride, my weakness. Maybe we both failed. He handed me the baby. She doesn't deserve our war. She deserves our mercy. The room went quiet except for the baby's tiny sighs. Outside, thunder rolled gently over Lekki, like the sky had softened too. Richard pressed a kiss to her forehead, then looked at me. I can forgive you, he said slowly. But I don't know if I can ever forget. I'll try. I nodded through tears. That's all I can ask. When he left the room to speak with the doctor, I looked down at our daughter. Proof that even broken things can bloom again. And in that moment, I understood why grace is called amazing. Because sometimes mercy isn't just my name. It's the only reason any of us are still standing.